So hi, my name is Garrett. My former driver code for Abilene Motor Express is CARG1. I have resigned as of December 7th, 2021. I'm calling this, I'm making this video more or less just to kind of give a basic gist of the culture of the company, my reasons for leaving, my temperament and opinions on safety. Ironically, that image right there with the failed fifth wheel lock is immediately on right when I say that. Lovely timing. Um, but yeah, this is just me trying to just talking over what I genuinely feel. I've been with the company since December 2017. I've experienced very different changes when it comes to practical enforcement, safety, hours of service, repair and maintenance personnel interactions, trailers and equipment care. There's been a lot of stuff going on there. When I came to the company, the company was legitimately more driver focused. If you looked at the physical equipment, there was much better care taken to what was on the trucks, what kind of equipment, kind of amenities were on them. These were big, heavy trucks with big tanks, nice big refrigerators, really nicely appointed with carpet and everything. Pretty nice, decent seats. For the rest of it, it's kind of box standard in that regard. Most of our rolling stock is pretty well maintained, repaired at that time. Just kind of, there wasn't a lot of it, so you were constantly running around trying to find empties. I can't remember exactly when. I'm pretty sure it was literally the year after I joined. I think it was in 2018. We were acquired by Knight Transportation. People can say whatever they want, but I don't acknowledge Swift as the owner because, as you'll see in some of these images in the background, Celadon incorporated their company and Quality Carriers. Swift had incurred an incredible amount of debt to Quality Carriers, from what I was understanding, and Celadon proper, which was the only reason the Celadon was still afloat at the time. That's a different story, but this is why I say Knight Transportation is who purchased Abilene Motor Express, or AEQC. At that time, you started to see creeps coming, like feature creep or enforcement creeps. At that time, the most very obvious one immediately to drivers was that our personal conveyance, which had traditionally been an hour, 60 minutes, had been dropped down to 30 minutes, and that was at the request of Knight Transportation. That was also at the point at which they started changing the kind of equipment orders and stuff that they were buying from Volvo Incorporated and PACCAR. So their orders were becoming a little bit more scant. Less amenities were on the trucks. They tended to be cheaper. The tanks were significantly smaller. If you look at the current Abilene trucks versus the ones even from 2018, 150-gallon tanks, maybe 200 tops, depending on it. But most of the trucks that you'll see with those bigger tanks, yeah, they were from prior to 2018, because at 2019, you see any of the Kenworths, you see any of the Volvos, the Freightliners. If they have more than about 150 gallons or more than 200 gallons, they're pre-Knight equipment. And that's why people hold on to them for so long. My active equipment units were 1426, 1610, 1806 for a demonstrably long part. Like, I was operating 1806 from the fall in 2018, pretty much, and up until the spring of this. Well, not this year. It was sometime last year. And 6-1 was my permanent unit from then on. To also put this in perspective, I have been in operations mostly in Brooklyn, New York, Queens, North Bergen, South Plainfield, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Connecticut. Like, when you get further north, it's less specific. But when I was working in Brooklyn, specifically, that was about 6 round trips. My basic route ran from southwestern Virginia up into Brooklyn, New York. Delivered there, went to South Plainfield, brought it back home for Salem, Abington, or Meadowview, again, southwestern Virginia, picked up another Brooklyn, went back up. That cycle would continue basically Sunday evening through Friday morning. Would go home, come back, give or take there. One of the biggest things about it is, like, the only claim to fame anymore with Abilene Motor Express is the governor speed, and even that is coming down because, again, when I joined in late 2017, the equipment was governed anywhere from 72 to 74 miles an hour. Safety will deny that. I'm not here to discuss what their official statement is. I'm just telling you the equipment that I've been in and witnessed, and there is equipment that was governed up that high. Now the governor speeds are coming down closer to 68, 67, 66. It's basically wholesale mega carrier speeds. You know, Warner, JB Hunt, Schneider, Knight, Swift. They're all low speed. And Abilene Motor Express is just quickly becoming a subsidiary. That's also kind of how I view the outlook, the 10-year outlook for the company. I really see this company just becoming more and more and more corporatized. I see older management leaving the company and big policy changes happening. Just stuff. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I see the internal stuff. Like, there's been, I'm not talking about official statements from the company. There's been several dispatch purges. There's been like dozens of people laid off and fired from the actual internal offices. I can't really support this with information because it's very hush-hush. But from what I've understood, people are just gone one day and coming back to places. And that worries me a lot. I really stayed away from a lot of it because of the nature of where I was working, because I was working up in New York. I was someone that was very hard to replace in that regard. Out of, well, the numbers vary, anywhere from 426 to 380 trucks. Out of them, there were 12 active units out of those 300 to low 400, trucks. There was 12 of us, 8 of which were the only people that were going there regularly. There were other people that were willing to go up there, but most weren't. So I was one of the few drivers that worked uniquely in the Bronx and in Brooklyn and generally in New York City and the New York Metro. So I am not somebody that is easy to replace in that regard. I worked in that area without incident for a very long time. And I was never really given any respect by the company for it. Like, there might have been word of mouth from my actual regional dispatch and other stuff, but corporate didn't care. Those are some very, very expensive and very well-paying loads that were going there, and their consideration for me was basically zero. That's on top of me bringing probably 8 or 9 individual drivers to the company over the past 2 or so years. I never claimed anything from them. I never requested anything from them. And basically, I feel like I've been disrespected and shafted. To a certain degree right now, one of the big things that was precipitating when I was leaving, well, it kind of started with the corporate office. I had gone in probably back in September or sometime around then. I had brought my unit in to have work done to the body. There was body work that's missing that gets knocked off on the bumper covers and the lower fascia on the front of the trucks all the time if you're dealing with snow or anything like that. There was also, on a lot of our Volvo units were rushed out of the New River plant in Dublin, Virginia. They were rushed off with quarter paneling. The fairings there along the bottom of the truck were not even bolted down completely or at all. So we had units going down the road that there was pieces of them falling off. And just so you know, we had that happen with Freightliners and both PACCAR products, both Peterbilt and Freightliner, but Peterbilt and Kenworth. Though our company exclusively used Kenworths. I'm just saying I had witnessed with other companies purchasing Peterbilts and Kenworths from their locations here. that they'd also had rush deliveries with group deliveries, where stuff was falling off. So the reason I was there was to get work done on that. I had corner pieces off of my bumper cover falling off, which had been repaired with very shoddily and quickly with putty and other stuff, and it broke off again and again and again because they kept repairing it with the same stuff instead of using heavier, stronger product or actually hooking the brackets in and tightening and bolting everything down. They just put putty on it and put it there. But just so you know, I'm not going to say his name, but the person that's in charge of that body shop decided to take pictures of my unit, which, by the way, the decals and stuff that had been on it had been on my units since before I actually joined Abilene proper. Like, those decals had been on equipment all in these pictures. If you look at the Celadon units, you'll see them. You'll see the same decals in the windows. If you look on some of these earlier pictures from my Abilene trucks, you will see those golden big Visiers, which are pretty much the way you know it was me and knew it was me. Those were on my units pretty much from the start. And anytime you don't see them was either when I was moving into a truck or after I'd left, because I would remove them as soon as I got out of them, unless I didn't have time to or I didn't have my tools on me. But he decided to take pictures of this unit, distributed it company-wide, and basically do this big old temper tantrum about magnets that I had on the metal parts of my doors and decals that I had on my sleeper windows on my truck and had since I joined the company. That started, got reprimanded by safety, got reprimanded by upper management, and then had to remove them under threat of being fired. And then shortly after that, they started to just scorch earth the entire fleet and say, no, you can't have this stuff on your trucks, you can't personalize anything. In our community, in psychiatry and psychology, that's called, you're blatantly trying to de-individuate individual people. You're trying to make it so that everyone is just this homogeneous green hive mind. All the trucks look the same. Nobody stands out. They try to make stupid arguments about being identifiable and easy to track down and possibly take hostage. Guys, all they need is our trailer number. All they need is the hold number. All they need is the truck number and the trailer number, and they can track us from one side of the country to the other, no matter how obtuse and how crazy and how many different turns I make. They don't need to see the stickers on the back of my sleeper to identify me. All they really need is your very plainly DOT-regulated place hold numbers that are on all of these trucks to identify me and track me. So, like, that statement doesn't hold water, and you blatantly were doing this because you wanted to cull it. But guess what, guys? I worked for a mega corporation. I worked for Celadon Trucking, and they had, some 6,000 active units, about 900 office staff. They didn't give a fuck what was on my truck. They didn't give a shit. Because work is work, loads are loads, get stuff done. Nobody cares it's a corporate company. The fact that you went so far and so far out of the way to basically try to make an example of me is real, for one, is completely unprofessional, and two, just annoying. Because you're sitting in an office in Henrico County, Virginia, and I'm driving into the Bronx, up to recycling facilities. To put in perspective, back when I was working for Celadon, I got shot at in the Bronx, like shot through the sleeper and the cab of my truck while I was driving. You guys don't go up there. You don't go up into the Northeast. You don't go into Chicago. There's images in the background here of one of my Celadon units in scrapyards on the west side of Chicago. They don't care. They don't care. Oh, you got stickers on the back of your truck. We're going to make an example of you. Oh, and then the next part about that is, I know that the next step in why I was leaving is that in November we had it was either late September or November. I'd have to look at the dates here. You can see an image in the background here that was passing on the slides of what my Volvo on 20061 sitting out there on 78 headed eastbound, with all the trucks on with their marker lights and everything. We're just sitting there. We had 78 got flooded out because of remnants of a hurricane that come up the East Coast. It hit northern Jersey, Brooklyn, New York, Connecticut. It had flooded out both in front of and behind where we were. So if you were looking at my truck from that angle, back to the west of us, further down on 78. The water cut us off behind. To the east of us, the water had crossed down over 78, was going down into the tertiary, was going down to the beltway. 278, 287 was on side highways and county roads and county routes. It was blocking everything. What happened there is that night, because I was sitting there, I was vacuuming, I was trying to reorganize, get some stuff out of my truck. I was right in the middle of doing something when I had been there. I put in perspective, when I was working that dedicated route for Boarside Foods, I was leaving between 4 and 5 p.m. at night from Southern Virginia, and then I would arrive at the Boarside facility in Brooklyn roughly around 2 to 3 o'clock, depending on what the demands were and what the product was that we were taking. And so I'm up there. The road shutdown happened around midnight. We started moving around 3. I drove pretty much up to the split. I believe it's 287, because you go north, that's Tappan Zee, south, it's Perth Amboy. I got to that split. I can't remember the exact exit number, and one of my coolant lines that runs on the lower half of there's an interchange set that runs back to the rear coolant on the rear AC and to the fuel heaters and to the cooling jacket. And the cooling jacket, besides the fuel heaters, is the second lowest point on the coolant system on that truck. As I was approaching that interchange and coming to a stop, there was somewhere in there that we hit standing water, and apparently that standing water had broken that. Like, it wasn't like hydroplaning or anything like that. It's just I couldn't see it. Like, we came around a corner, I was doing probably 40, 50 miles an hour. It was just very, very weird circumstances. Cars were pulled over. I hit that standing water. Apparently somehow it sloshed up under my fender ring and my other stuff, and it got in, and somehow, either just because of the heat stress or whatever, that fitting, just disintegrated and dumped out all of the coolant, basically in the system in a matter of minutes. So it happened probably about 3 or 4 miles before, at not quite highway speeds. It had already drained my entire coolant system, so I had to immediately get off and shut down. I couldn't move it because I wasn't going to risk seizing the block. All this to say, I was in the middle of trying to reorganize and clean my truck, so stuff was everywhere. I had gotten wet clothes because I had to walk out in the rain, so there was wet clothes sitting in my sleeper, like draped over top of stuff drying out. And I was stuck there because it was an emergency zone, and tow trucks had been tied up with people stupidly trying to drive out in the flooding there. Big truck accidents. Like, there was a section down closer to, I saw it later, like when I came down, because I had to come down, and even then, as I was getting towed to Edison, there were places there near the Perth Amboy interchanges where 95 comes up. There was 25 feet of water. The water level in the river had came up and was like completely covering one of the Amazon, I don't think it's a fulfillment center because it's too small, but a transfer center. 25 feet of water. And we have all this stuff going on. My truck's a mess because I was already working on it. And so I break down, I call all my stuff in, I wait from, basically midnight, if you want to add the time that I was sitting because of the road closure. So I was sitting there in earnest, shut down, broken down from 3 a.m. to almost 4 p.m., 5 p.m. before a unit could get to me. We had to do this song and dance where we had to drop the loaded trailer because it still needed to go to New York City. And then by the time I got to frickin' Edison and got to Cambria Truck Services, which, by the way, they're great people. If you're ever having problems up there, they're the first place you're going to want to contact if you're up in New York City or in, like, Elizabeth, Edison, Bergen. Like, they're a good place. We got the truck dropped off over there, dropped the keys off, took what little I was going to take, anything that people were likely to steal. Called an Uber, went to the closest hotel, and just, chilled out because I was I was strung out, I was tired, I was stressed, I was sleep deprived. And I went to bed. and that unit got fixed within about 3 days because to order in hose. Yeah, 3 days for a hose. And that unit proceeded to sit down there for almost 2 weeks. Well, down, I mean up. At any time, corporate dispatch could have put me on somebody else's truck, driven me up there, had me get in the unit in Edison and go to South Plainfield or anywhere around there within literally 5 to 10 minutes, reloaded, basically paid for the trip on its own. Nope, didn't. They sent up an individual with a towing company that then bobtailed that unit, this is 2061, down to Richmond. They took pictures of the leftovers of me reorganizing and working my, and basically tried to infer that they were filthy. I guess I should have included the photos here, but I guess I could try and do that in post. But you can see clean carpet and dusted and clean dash in the shot, and they're selectively taking this picture of my organizer, which is on my passenger seat, so that everything is within grasp without me having to look, like my ID, my wallet, any type of medicine, like acetaminophen, any type of cold medicine, zinc, that kind of stuff. It's all right there. I've got air filters in there in that space. Just all this stuff. So basically, they're trying to say that my truck is disgusting and gross, but carpet's clean. You can see 2 air filters clearly in the pictures. You can see what is being dried laundry sitting around. And you can see where I took my computer and a lot of my expensive personal items and just pulled them out of the truck. So everything's disorganized. This is in the midst of a flood zone, state of emergency. Martial law was declared in certain places in New York City. And these people thought that it was the most professional thing to use pictures sent by this towing company of a truck from a driver that was preoccupied with so much more, and pass it around the offices, and again, do this, just try to make an example of me. And that was that was legitimately the point where I'd already called up, started putting in applications and talking with other companies. And within a week or two, I had already laid out my plans for resigning as of the December 7th. I didn't try to do anything funny business. Once I turned in my 2 weeks notice on the 23rd, I was playing it low key. Pretty straightforward, and turned my keys in on the 6th. Had everything off of company property by the 7th. Didn't pull anything funny. I even brought over Duck Donuts, which is a handmade donut place in where I live, and brought those down a week before as a gesture of goodwill. And in return, I basically was told that I wouldn't be rehired, or it was just a bunch of stuff happened after I left the company, and I was reading transcripts from a PSP and a bunch of background information provided that no one had actually communicated to me or coached me on. Essentially, they didn't say that I wasn't able to rehire. They didn't say that I was a safety liability to the extent that they like to think. And so basically, I did the proper thing, put in my 2 weeks notice, brought all my equipment back, cleaned everything that I could within reason. I couldn't start the truck, so, I just tried to keep it on the up and up. By the way, these images in the background are when I was working with FEMA in Seguin, Texas, transporting liquids, other forms of aid. The stuff in the background is from when I was working with the American Red Cross. That's up Dallas-Fort Worth at the staging area. But that's besides the point. Yeah. There were just things around that point, after I left and before I left, that were just... I felt were very unprofessional. there's a lot of things that were going on in my personal life that I wasn't willing to disclose that were affecting my ability to drive, but I couldn't get out of those personal things. I couldn't leave my job. There was a lot of pressure from all sides. There was no flexibility from the company in what I could do. Local jobs have less benefits. You can't cash out your vacation days. There's all kinds of stuff where it just felt like the way that the corporate policy and safety and everything else was just a noose. And you can I could really feel the corporate encroachment coming from night transportation and the general company culture, and people just wasting my time, making the job exceedingly difficult and stressful for unrelated reasons. No work-life balance, no capability to obtain a work-life balance, because if you tried to have a work-life balance, you weren't making money, because these are mileage companies. They aren't hourly, not in our realm. And benefits are not competitive. The work environment is not competitive. It turned into a dime a dozen corpo company in the space of 2 years, essentially. And the safety departments became more predatory, less concerned with the actual safety and health and interpersonal life issues going on with the drivers. They just wanted to make sure our trucks didn't get into accidents and that their CSA score didn't descend anymore. So I put in a lot of very hard work, a lot of extreme work, being out there in you know, -30, -40 degrees in the Northwest, chaining up in various different times, doing some heavy lifting, having work, breaking down leftover equipment, pallets and other stuff, hand unloading a lot of stuff because customers would refuse to, and I just didn't fucking care enough to sit there and wait to have them send out somebody. And so I'm out there with my freaking worn out shoes, you know, trying to pull 2,500 pound pallets to get my truck unloaded. And does Abilene pay me for it? Fuck no. If they pay me for the hourly labor that I did in the entire time that I worked with Abilene Motor Express, I'd be looking at multiple paychecks worth of income, like several grand in just manual labor for the company. And I don't care. I don't care. I'm just reminding you that stuff goes on. We do it. We don't say shit to you. We don't complain. We just do our fucking job. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of good people in the company, but there is a lot of corporate creep and a lot of bad stuff happening. And I feel genuinely depressed and disappointed with the direction that the company's going, and I feel like it's only going to get worse. I really honestly hope to God that the people that are still working there are still making good money and in good health, and I hope you guys are doing okay. But I have a lot of concerns about the culture and the situation that the company is getting itself in, and I get this feeling that it's going to become a shell of itself. You're going to have a lot of very unskilled drivers working there. There's going to be more incidents. I feel like our CSA scores and our legal standing were already in bad shape, and I just feel like it's going to continue to get worse and worse. And I really hope that other drivers, when it really gets to that point, and this company recognize it and get out while they can and find safe passage somewhere else in the industry. But I'm genuinely scared for them. If you have questions, feel free to comment here. I'll try to respond to it. I'm not really interested in putting my socials out because I'm a pretty private person, and so if you wanna ask me questions here, that's fine. Hopefully this was informative. Hopefully this gave you an idea of the culture of the company. It's just kind of a look back at my time with the company. There's just pictures that I have back here from different places that I've worked, the conditions I've been in. Fun moments, not fun moments. I hope that this might help you and inform you in some way. I chose to show my face in here so people actually recognize who's talking. I'm not trying to preach to you, not telling you not to go to this company, but I'm just giving you my opinion and what I know, and I hope this has been some way helpful to you. And I apologize for the length, because I tend to ramble. And I hope you have a good one. Thank you.